Let's let my computer download eternally. All right, it's 7:30. This is the city council meeting for the city of Brainerd, Minnesota. It's July 19th at 7:30. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
O'Day.
Yes.
Try that. O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Pritchett.
Here.
Stingline. Here. Erickson.
Here.
Bevins.
Here.
And Bedot.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh man, I get claustrophobic up here.
Item number 4 is an approval of the agenda. I've had one request by Community Development Director Chansky to remove his presentation for the evening. So if there's no objections, we'd like to have a motion for the improved agenda. Unless there's any other changes, none.
So moved.
Motion by Pritchett, second by Erickson to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? Anybody want Lake Area Media Collaborative back tonight? All right.
I'll pass on that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're officially underway. Item 5 is a consent calendar. Notice that all matters listed are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call. Is there a motion to adopt the consent calendar
Johnson.
by Johnson?
Second, Stunek.
Second by Stunek. Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, the consent calendar has been adopted. Item 6 is going to be moved until the future. So item 7 is our council committee reports. Safety and Public Works Committee Chairman, Mr. O'Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 5 items on safety and public works tonight. First item is a request to approve the attached change order as presented for improvement 1, or change order 1 for improvement 20-06 Southeast Brainerd resurfacing project, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. Any discussion?
I can
Chairman
explain.
O'Day?
So basically, they had to realign the sanitary sewer so it didn't come in contact with a new water main, and also primary hookups for a vacant lot, which owner has expressed that he may or may not, but hopefully will, build on in the future. That's basically what it came down to. It was $3,225.99 was the total change in cost.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
The next 4 items are all event requests. The first one is the event by Visit Brainerd, the downtown minnow races. And the motion is to approve. Let's see here. Approve the event under the conditions that the applicant submit their insurance certificate and to ensure the minimum of a 4-foot walkway is maintained during the event. And I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Erickson. Any discussion? Chairman O'Day?
This is just a fun event during the Here for Good market downtown, involving some races with ping pong balls. They're actually not minnows, and squirt guns. So just something fun for kids to do downtown during the event.
And adults. Fun for all.
And adults? It's for adults too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll be there. That's pretty much it.
You could chase the ping pong ball.
Have to use a squirt.
Thank you, Chairman O'Day. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the downtown minnow races, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please proceed.
Next event application was involving the MHB Paddling Day held on July 31st from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. They use Kiwanis Park to paddle down the river, and then they end up at Crow Wing State Park. And this is just an application to make sure we don't double book and overfill the park with a bunch of other events. So the motion is to approve the attached application under the condition that the applicant fill out the park use form that is available at City Hall, and I so move.
Motion by O'Day, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
The third event is the Downtown Street Fest, which is going to be the final event for the sesquicentennial on September 25th, 2021, from 7 a.m. to 12 a.m., involving some ribs and live music and various other activities during the day. This one came up with a few conditions that staff recommended, and let me just read those. So the motion is to recommend approval of the attached application under the conditions that the applicant coordinate power and water needs with BPU staff, as has been done in previous years. Applicant monitor illegal parking within the leased BN lot during the event. The city is able to provide the applicant with additional barricades for the lot if necessary. Proper notification to all businesses should be provided before the event, along with details on how it may affect the business along the closure. Removal of all signs and banners after the event conclusion. Coordinate with the police department of staffing needed for the event. Request traffic control needed 1 week prior to the event. And then the one we added was just a condition that we set up a contact for Silent Partner Productions so that anybody can contact if need
So we
be.
can monitor sound levels.
Monitoring, there apparently have been some complaints of sound levels in the past, so.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
That is a motion.
And second.
All right, the motion is to approve this J.C. Street Fest with those 7 conditions. Gabe Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for maybe Chairman O'Day or maybe somebody from staff, but it says proper notification to all businesses should be provided before the event, along with details on how it may affect the businesses along the closure. So like, do they want us to mail them a letter saying, congratulations, we are hosting an event and you're gonna turn over your dinner service 4 times tomorrow night? Or, I mean, what is it you want us, or want them to tell the businesses?
Chairman O'Day, do you?
I think that makes a very valid point. That has always been the idea of this event. Some business owners tend to think of this as a parking block. The only closure is between South 6th Street and about halfway past 7th Street on Front Street. Typically, we only close down the 1 block. But yeah, it brings down more foot traffic downtown than any other event that I can think of, so that could possibly be added onto it, but this is really up to the J.C.'s to figure that out.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That event application is approved. Please proceed.
The last event application was for the Little Rubber Ducky Race. It's a street closure application for East River Road. This will be the first event on the 18th of September 2021 for the sesquicentennial events. Basically a big giant slip and slide on East River Road for 500 rubber ducks to go down, and the winner gets a major prize. And the motion is to approve the application under the conditions that the applicant requests traffic control for the event 1 week prior to the event, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett to approve the application. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Chairman O'Day, anything else?
End of report.
Thank you very much. Item B is the Personnel and Finance Committee Chairman Gabe Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 4 items on the agenda. We only require action on 2 of them. The first item is to approve the Water Tower Committee grant match request, time extension, and authorized grant submission to the Minnesota Historical Society. The motion out of committee is to authorize the $162,043 in grant match funds from the committed funds for the water tower project, and to authorize a submission of the grant request to the Minnesota Historical Society by the July 23rd, 2021 deadline, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Johnson, a second by Stunek. Is there any discussion? Chairman Johnson.
So this was with Paul Scogan presented to us last time, the grant to get the roof put on the water tower to stop any further, phase one, they're calling it, of what looks to be a phase two project to fix the water tower. This motion came out of committee. I was hoping the mayor would be here, or some water tower people, because I asked the mayor if we're gonna move forward with using city dollars to match this grant. Would like to ask the mayor a question if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
And that-
please.
Have you or the committee reached out to Brainerd in person about this, and are they satisfied with the progress being made on that? Because it was their concerns and complaints that kind of prompted all of the action we've taken in the last 3 years.
We have not heard back from them on that, but so far, the commentary that we've had has been positive, and they have been satisfied with where we're moving. The actual progress made in the last 2 weeks, we have not heard on, so that we would need clarification on.
Okay, and I would just like to get that. I would like to get something in writing from Brainerd in person saying this phase one approach looks good, we're satisfied, we're not threatening the things we were threatening 3 years ago. But
That's an excellent idea, and I don't know who the staff member is, if we have one that's been assigned. Well, I don't think we have.
Mark Oscar.
Mark Oscarden, I'm sure would be.
Call back.
My point being, Mr. Johnson, is this is a great idea. It's important, but somebody has to actually do it. And can we put this on Administrator Bergman's plate? Is that okay if that's part of the motion? To assign staff member Bergman to follow up with Breen in person? It can be a separate motion. Let's make that a separate.
We'll make it a second
Keep this motion
So
clean.
my final point is they also requested an extension of the deadline to September 2022. We didn't include that in the motion. We're basically dropping the deadlines. And the expectation is that they'll report back to us as progress is made or as necessary. But instead of just moving the deadline every 6 months, we're working together to get this water tower repaired.
Any further discussion? Mayor Bedell?
The only thing I just want to comment on is the dollar amount is lower than what was even anticipated at the last meeting, I believe. So when you're looking at that 162, that is half of the ask, so a 50-50 match, which was presented at, I believe, 402, and now we're looking at somewhere around 320, I believe.
Again.
There we go.
Any further discussion? Thank you, Mayor Bedell. That is good news. Gabe, I have one, and I think it should be a third motion on this.
Okay.
The monies granted from the city funds should have some kind of completion guarantee, meaning they can't spend the money if they're not gonna put the roof on it. We can't just grant the money to the water tower project. You know what I'm saying?
I totally missed that, and you're absolutely right, Mr. Chair, that I would like to change the motion to authorize $162,043 to be grant match funds for this specific grant application.
How about a project deadline?
And just this one July 23rd, 2021 deadline, so.
Okay. That's to raise funds for the water tower. What about the roof? This money's going to the roof, right? And if they never build the roof, they still get the money based on this motion.
Yeah.
And that I don't think that's correct. I don't think we want to give taxpayer money to the water tower committee and that on September 22nd or 2022, they say, well, we just haven't raised the money. And there's nothing that says they have to give it back.
Well, we're authorizing.
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, my clarification would be my intent in my motion was we're authorizing the commitment of the funds as a grant match on this one grant application to the Minnesota Historical Society to fix the roof. with a July 23rd, 2021 deadline on the grant application. But if you want to add a project deadline,
Well, I don't necessarily, I just want to add that they have to give the money back if they don't get it.
Yep.
If they don't do the project,
yep.
the money has to be returned.
Right, it's still part of the $300,000 we have saved up to tear the tower
I
down.
want to make sure that's clear
Yep.
in this motion. It wasn't to me.
And I do
Connie,
believe we will not pay the grant money unless we get the grant and it's part of the project. It'll go through the city.
that's perfect. Okay,
Yeah, I'll second the changes.
clarifications.
The clarification.
They're just clarifications, that's all. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. And that motion carries. Mr. Johnson, can you just make the second motion to have Administrator Bergman follow through with Breen in person?
So moved.
Second.
On the progress of the water tower.
Progress of the water tower. So the motion by Johnson, second by Stengline, to have Administrator Bergman follow up with Breen in person as to the project on the water, progress on the water tower and intentions. Any further discussion on that part? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Chairman Johnson, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is additional cyber liability insurance coverage. When we renewed our insurance policy earlier this year, this was one of the items we asked staff to look into to see if it's something we want. Attached, you'll see what our current coverage is and what our increased coverage would be. City staff thought it wasn't worth the $16,000 it would cost, so we didn't take action because we're not recommending to do anything. The next item is the discussion of RFP for the 2021 audit services. Nobody on my committee cared to go out for RFPs, so we didn't take any action. Clifton Larson Allen is our auditor, and they will continue to be. Unless somebody else has other thoughts, please bring it to the committee. We'll revisit it. And the final item is the resolution to close out bond funds 319, 309, and Fund 229. And the motion is to approve the attached resolution transferring certain funds to and from sinking funds and to close out certain funds. And I so move.
We have a motion by Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stengline. Any discussion? Chairman Johnson.
So this is just closing out some funds. You'll see in the memo that Bond Fund 319 has paid off the debt issuance, and there's a cash balance of $49,000 and change. Bond Fund 309, the debt issuance has been paid off. There's a cash balance of over $10,000. We're zeroing those out, and per our policy, moving them into Fund 400. Then the other movement is Fund 229 is what we used for the CARES Act funding that we received last year. That's got a negative balance of $83,159.10. We're moving funds from 400 into Fund 229 to zero that out, and we will be using that when we receive the American Recovery Act funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this is a resolution. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that resolution is adopted. Item 8 is unfinished business. This is the call for applicants. First up, the mayor has something he'd like to recommend.
That is right. The mayor recommends or has the following committees that are looking for applicants. The Cable TV Advisory Committee, one term expiring 2021, one term expiring 2022. Charter Commission, one term expiring 2022. Housing Redevelopment Authority, one term expiring 2022. Rental Dwelling License Board of Appeals, 3 terms expiring 2022. Transportation Advisory Committee, one term expiring 2022. This other committee is also available. The Economic Development Authority, one term expiring 2021. That is 9/7 of said year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as council president, I have a one term on the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission to expire 2023. And the Water Tower Committee, as previously mentioned, has 2 positions available. Item 9 is new business. Item 9A is a consideration for designating the park board as the managing entity for the Mississippi Landing Trailhead project and implementing a project management team. Anybody from staff wish to, this would be David Chansky, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Anything you want to add before I ask for a motion?
Nothing that's not already in the agenda request.
Perfect. Anybody have any questions on this agenda item? Hearing none? Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
Why have the park board be the managing entity as opposed to the city council?
So the reason we thought about the park board is because this is going to couple things. One, this is ultimately going to be a city park. So it's going to fall under their stewardship. That was the intention when we were applying, and throughout the review process and applying, the Riverfront Committee was before the park board multiple times, and the park board for every submittal we did had their support with the intention, understanding that this would eventually be a park under their control. So we want to be a park that they fits their vision, and especially right now because the park board is going under creating design standards and such for the parks, we want to make sure that the Mississippi Landing Trailhead ultimately fits that vision as well.
Well, that doesn't answer my question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So what, the proposal here is to put a project management team in place that would make all of the decisions based on the design standards and following what the park board has already set in place. My question is, what's the advantage of the park board being the managing entity of the project over the city council? Because my understanding of the project management team managing the project and making the decisions, the only reason you would go back to the managing entity, the city council or park board, would be, shucks, guys, it's gonna be $3.5 million, not 2.85. So why are we putting that on the park board when they don't have the authority to raise an additional $700,000? Where that would, ultimately, they would just have to come ask the city council for it. Is there an answer to that?
Seems like a good question. Mr. Tansky, any answer for that?
So first of all, the intention of the project management team is not to necessarily be the decision-making. They are to, because of, again, the technical aspect of this, make some technical recommendations. They go back to the park board for then their final approval. Takes some of that meeting time away from the full park board having to do this. We actually had a discussion to see if the park board was on board with this with the park board last week. And one of the discussions one of the members of the park board brought up is they just went through this with the Memorial Park project, and actually they liked having the idea of the project management team because having the whole park board do Memorial Park was a really time intensive. So that's one reason they're actually supporting the project management team idea, is that let them do that technical work, come back for them for the final approvals kind of for each step of the way, not just they approve it and the project management team makes all the decisions. The park board is still responsible for making final decisions throughout the whole development process.
Hang on. Mr. Johnson.
I guess, it doesn't tell me why the park board's a better entity than the city council, but if that's staff's recommendation, staff's the one that has to do it, so I'm fine with it. But I just think it's important we stay at $2.85 million. The city council thought, we were adamant, unanimous, multiple motions that Memorial Park will stay under $1.3 million. We're pushing $2 million over in Memorial Park right now, and I just don't want to see that happen again. Thank you, Kelly.
Mayor Bedeau, and then Paul Sandy.
Sure, so I just have two questions. One, has this been designated a park already? So the park board, under my understanding, has the authority over the parks, but this has not been designated an actual park yet. So that would still put it under the city council's jurisdiction in terms of the managerial process of it. My other concern with it is from a financial standpoint of the funding. We have a group that's been in charge of working with this that has moved forward with the project. I'd like to see that within their hands as much as possible, because in working with these grants, we still have work to do to ensure that this money gets to where it needs to be. Any type of movement away from that, any type of disconnection from the communications we've had or the relationships that we've built puts us at jeopardy of potentially losing the funding as well. So it seems a little backwards to me when the project hasn't even been designated a park to be put into the hands of the group that is in charge solely of the parks.
Excellent. Mr. Sandy?
I was just gonna talk. Sorry, I got a little bit of a Frog. So we started writing the RFP here today, and we made it very clear in the RFP that the consultant that we choose knows that the budget for the project is $2.85 million. And with that, the RFP we've designated certain areas as alternates to make sure that when we bid this out, that the funding matches the project, or that the project matches the funding, and make sure we get the elements that everyone wants from the Riverfront Committee, the Park Board, the City Council, from that project management team, also realizing that we cannot control the prices that we get in bids sometimes, and making sure we have flexibility that if certain items come in too expensive, that we can shave the project down with alternates. Instead of awarding the whole project, we have alternates in place to make sure we have some safeguards.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. So at this point, you have a suggestion from David Chansky to authorize the Park Board to be the managing entity, okay, for the Mississippi Landing Trailhead project. This goes directly to what Mayor Bordeaux said. And develop a project management team for the project comprised of 1 member of the City Council, 2 members of the Park Board, and 2 members of the Riverfront Committee, with the Community Development Director and City Engineer as ex officio members. That's the suggestion. We don't have to do that. We can do something different if we want to. But it's time to get moving on this, and I think staff's asking for direction from the council. So the motion could be to approve that suggestion, and if there's a second and 4 votes, that's the way it's going to be. Or there could be a motion to do something else. I've allowed discussion because we have no motions, but now I'd like to see a motion on this by somebody up here. Without a motion, the project's not going to do anything. So we have to move forward on it if you want to move forward on it.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve this as presented.
Thank you.
I would add that this is, being the liaison to this this committee, that this has been a discussion of the committee too, that this would ultimately end up with the park.
You can't discuss it without a second. So can I ask?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Erickson, second by Chairman Johnson. Tad, please continue.
Just wanted to add to as you mentioned, a recommendation from staff. I would also say it's backed up by the committee too. There's been a discussion of the committee that this would ultimately be a parks.
That's part of this
project,
motion.
so.
Yep, okay. All right, we got a motion by Erickson with some discussion, second by Johnson. Chairman Johnson, any discussion?
You know, I'll support the motion. I just really don't want it to cost more than 2.85. And if it does, I'd like to know that before the shovels are in the ground. I just really hope that the project management team does a good job. And I would volunteer myself to be the 1 member from the city council unless somebody else really wants to do it. I know Tad's been the liaison to that committee, so I'd give him the first option on it. But that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chairman O'Day.
I did take over the liaison position from Alderman Erickson. We haven't met because it's been pretty stagnant since then, but I do also volunteer for being part of that.
Perfect. Okay, any further discussion? I would like to just add, I have support for this motion, and we're going to handle the liaison separately next. However, Chairman Johnson, you mentioned an additional $800,000 in Memorial Park. I wrote the note to Administrator Bergman. I'd like to get the minutes on when we approved that additional funding. I don't recall it, and you mentioned it as, and do you recall it? Yeah,
So it was in the capital request from the parks last year. They already had the 1.3, and then they requested an additional few $100,000. And then you have the extra 100 for the splash pad. And they have phase 2 that's in their park plan for a few years down the road at another 500. And
okay.
it was within the capital planning process last year was the amounts over 1.3.
Thank you. I'd like to see those minutes, just to refresh us, because that's a lot of money. And you brought that up. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, this is not a resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We've had 2 volunteers to have this, to be the city council liaison, our two chairs. Administrator Bergman? you have a procedural?
Well, I don't have a procedural, and if I may comment?
Yes.
All right, I guess what I would just like to say is this is just a recommendation. If the council feels like you would rather have 2 council members on this project management team, staff would be more than happy. So this is just a recommendation to get discussion started. So we would defer to the council.
We just approved 1.
Yeah, and
We could have put
I have a
all 7
motion,
of
I have a
us.
motion if you're ready.
Well, you, certainly your motion would be in order, but we were going to handle the liaison next, was my plan. What is your motion?
My motion was going to be to appoint Mike O'Day as the.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Mike O'J by Johnson, second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Chairman O'Day, for serving the council. I just as soon not discuss a second council member or more because that would contradict the motion 2 motions ago. All right, where are we now? We are on item 9, new business. Discussion of interim public works department. This is Administrator Bergman.
It is. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. As you recall, we did create a discussion group back in 2020 to discuss an interim public works department and came up with a plan as a result of that discussion group, which was ultimately approved by the park board and the city council. We've been kind of taking a look or keeping an eye on how this interim public works department is going, and staff thinks it's going extremely well. We did bring this item to the park board last week to see how they thought it was going. They also thought it was working well and did make a recommendation to the council to create a permanent public works department. So we kind of debated a little bit, should this be on PNF or should this be on Safety and Public Works? And at this point, we thought this is just kind of conceptual. So we thought we would bring it to the full council. And so what we're just asking for is some discussion and direction on this topic. If the council concurs, the recommended action would be to create a permanent Public Works Department structure, and then further to direct staff to review applicable job descriptions for any necessary modifications to fit any new changed or added duties or removed duties. And then we would come back with something more formal in the future. At this point, we're just looking for some discussion and direction. And Mr. Chair, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. So the discussion, and rest assured, I would like a motion at the end of this directing staff to construct the particulars on a permanent Public Works Department and to bring that back to the council for final approval. So I want to give conceptual approval at the end of this. But before we ask for that motion, is there any discussion on the Public Works Department, how it's been going, things that we should change, things that staff should be aware of before we send them off to do any bidding on the permanent structure? Anybody?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
Everything I've heard has been going positive, so I would recommend that too.
Yep, okay, we'll let you make the motion when it comes up here in a minute. Any just discussion comments before I ask for the motion? Chairman O'Day?
I just wanted just to question those who are involved most, maybe Sean Middaugh, maybe Kevin Yeager, Paul Sandy, just what's been working, what hasn't been working, if there's any inefficiencies in the new Public Works Department, or if there's anything that needs to be addressed before we move forward. Basically everything that we just talked about, but
You're kind of
their
opening
mouths.
a public hearing.
But I was just gonna try to ask them, but it's up to you if you wanna do that.
You know what, we've got some fairly smart men in the room and women. Let's ask them if they have anything they want to add.
Here comes the cable company.
Yeah, here comes the cable company. So, anybody like to add something that staff should know about this per Chairman O'Day's desires? Come on up, state your name, address if you hold a position on the committee, and what you think about a permanent public works department.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. Kevin Yeager, 325 Bluff Avenue, President or Chair of the Park Board, and I'll keep this short and simple. I would say that we've been exceedingly happy. There's been a bit of a learning curve with just some of the aspects of who's doing what and why and when, but Mr. Sandy and the rest of the staff has been just exemplary in the transition, and I can see every day, every meeting, it continuing to smooth out more and more and more. So from at least my chair in the Park Board, 100% support for this. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to comment on a potential permanent public works department? All right. Gabe?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments on it if I can.
Yep,
Mr. Chair.
now's the time.
Yeah, as a user of the parks, as a boy who's in T-ball, going through the YMCA programming, and a son that's in the Major League Baseball going through the community ed program, I think the programming this year has been the best it's been in the years I've used it, raising my kids. So we haven't lost a step in the programming, maybe improved. I think what the YMCA is doing in JC Park is amazing. And then as far as how it's working staff-wise, from my perspective, I showed up to JC's Park for the first night of T-ball, and a drinking fountain, the one drinking fountain at JC's Park was missing. I think it was taken off last fall and never replaced. I called Paul, and he ordered one and got it on and fixed it. No problem, no time at all. It's been excellent. So as a user of the parks, I think this department is the right thing to do.
Thank you. Anybody else? Now, we're going to ask for a motion to direct staff to create a permanent public works structure and bring it back for final approval to the city council. Is there a motion to do
I would
so?
make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Stunek, second by Pritchett. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Staff's got direction. This does not mean if you come up with something, you can't tell staff. Okay? If you come up with something, think of something in a couple days. I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
Yeah, just text it to Paul. He'll get it done.
Well, I was thinking more on the public works structure. Okay, thank you. Next up, consideration for the resolution adopting the zoning code annotated outline. This is David Chansky. David, anything you want to add to what's in your memo and in the packet?
Just that I did send an email out to the city council last Thursday. I know there was just to follow up on some of the comments, questions, concerns that I heard during the work session on July 12th. If I hope that clarified some things. If it did not, obviously open to answer any questions that the council has on this issue. Again, the goal here of adopting the annotated outline is kind of our framework for writing the actual zoning code. And by adopting this resolution tonight, what you would essentially be doing was authorizing staff to start the process of actually doing the drafting of the new zoning code ordinance language.
Is there any questions for Mr. Chansky? Seeing none, staff is looking to adopt the attached resolution approving the annotated outline for the new zoning code. Anybody care to make a motion?
So move.
Who was that?
So move, Erickson.
So moved
Second.
Erickson, second by Stengline. Any discussion on the motion? Chairman Johnson.
I'll be voting no. I was under the impression at the workshop that we would be having a conceptual approval of form-based zoning approval on the agenda tonight. And instead, we have a resolution adopting the annotated outline that was presented to us. And there are just some problems with the annotated outline that no amount of lecturing is going to satisfy me with. And that's, I don't like the ranking of the traditional neighborhoods in 1, 2, 3. I don't like that this one map has a conservation neighborhood, but nowhere else in the document is that tied into what type of zoning or anything that would be. There's just a lot of, it's just, I don't want to adopt a resolution accepting this annotated outline as the document. So I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Chairman O'Day.
I'm going to agree with Gabe. there was a few things on here that I didn't like, and basically he mentioned those. The email clarified some of that, but I still don't like the approach. You're taking one neighborhood tiered with a different neighborhood. No matter how you change the wording or change the characterization of each neighborhood, you're going to have a tiered system of neighborhoods. I like the idea of gridded neighborhoods all being tiered the same. If you can somehow change it to that, so we don't show favoritism in certain areas of the city, I think it's more fair for each neighborhood to be brought up equally. So that's my main thing. The conservation neighborhood, I'm not so sure that I get the concept of what is trying to go there, other than bigger plats of land or bigger lots, which isn't really Brainerd's way of doing things usually. I think that should be still left up to design as we get further in what's going to happen with that land. But as far as going forward, I think it was my understanding that we just talked about what the concepts were, and we gave you some of our concerns, and then you guys were going to go ahead and bring back some designs or changes with that after a moratorium of 6 months. So doing a resolution right now, 1 week later, adopting everything that was in it isn't what I had in mind. So I'll be voting no on this as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'm going to let Mayor Bedeau speak. Go ahead, Mayor Bedeau.
Sure. I was not at the workshop, but I had the opportunity to sit in with the Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting when this stuff was brought up, or when we went through it. And I as well have concerns with some of the stuff that's in there. However, my bigger concern is with the resolution itself. Reading that resolution, it's not something that I personally feel comfortable putting my name on. I don't like the idea that we're just going and putting a blanket approval on something that went through in one workshop. You know, it sounded, in hearing from and talking with council members, that this was something that was going to be an ongoing thing. And then seeing this resolution, I was very taken aback by just reading it, and immediately said, this is not something I'm okay with putting my name on.
Mr. Mayor. Anybody else? Tad Erickson.
I'll jump in. So I think, the Planning Commission has been working with the consultants for quite a fair amount of time on this. And so it wasn't just the one workshop. And I think the consultants were very clear that the names of the character areas in the annotated outline are still subject to change. And so I think that's, to me, that I know you said you're not going to be convinced, so I'm not really trying to convince the two no votes here, but I think that's something that's still up for change, and the consultants were clear about that. And that sounded like where most of your concerns were, the ranking of those two neighborhoods, not necessarily ranking, but that's the way it may appear, and those names are subject to change. So I'm gonna support the motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to follow up to that if I can. The resolution we're passing doesn't say, be it resolved that the ideas and things that were mentioned by consultants one time is what we're going to do. It says, be it resolved that the recommendations contained within the annotated outline dated July 12th, 2021 is what we are adopting. So it's not, maybe we can change it, we're adopting what is exactly in that annotated outline. That's what this resolution is adopting, and that's why I'm voting no. But that's my second time speaking on it, Mr. Chair, and that's how I feel.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. I also am voting against this motion, and Chairman Johnson just outlined it as to why. And we were told time and time again at the workshop that we were not voting on any detail as far as the descriptions. Yet I have 24 pages of detailed description for the annotated zoning. I even asked at that workshop, anybody have any conceptual problems? That's different than this 24-page document. I happen to like a lot of what's in here, but I got it with 1 day before the workshop and didn't have enough time to really study the 24 pages and what it actually says. But I do know there's a lot of detail in it. And in the end, I may support this entire document or some portion of it, but I'd like to have some time to go through it before adopting it as a resolution. So I'm going to vote against the resolution because it's not what we discussed at the workshop. And it's not what the people that we hired that presented at the workshop asked us to do. So otherwise, we'd have needed how many hours?
Planning Commission's been at it for a while. So.
We'd have needed a while. So, and I'm sure this group can do that, but probably with a little more time. All right, everybody's had a chance to discuss. Tiffany, what would you like to say?
I actually, because I agree what, how clearly we were told that the specifics were not what we were voting on. So I guess I would like to hear from Mr. Chansky again in response to these concerns that have been brought up about what this is actually saying.
I let Mr. Tansky speak first. We have a motion and a second. So if you have a specific question about something that's in here that needs clarification, but if you're asking for a generic what we're voting on.
That's okay. I will withdraw
You
that.
know what I'm saying?
Yes,
right?
I do.
Okay.
I just,
If you're asking him to argue his position on this, I don't feel comfortable letting him do that. If you've got a specific question on something in here that's unclear, I'm up for that. Does that make sense?
yes.
This is
I'm
our
not
time.
throwing my shoe at you, Kelly.
That's okay. I appreciate it. I just want you to understand why I'm not. That's why we let staff go first, to let them explain their point. I think he did. I know he did. I heard him do it. We can play the tape. But yeah. So I'd prefer if you've got questions of that nature, please ask them afterwards. So, okay. So if you're voting yes on this, you're voting to adopt this. Chairman Johnson I believe was correct. All 24 pages of it. Names and everything. So, do you have any other questions? And I'm sorry to sound mean.
No, you do not sound mean. I am not throwing my shoe at you, Kelly, even though I've been invited to do so.
Anything else?
Real quick.
Dave Pritchett, take as long as you want. The rest
Thank
of us.
Wait a minute.
I'm actually not too concerned about the names because you can't tell if T1 is better than is it baseball or is it basketball, right? Is T3? So that doesn't concern me. It does concern me a little bit that we were talking about the general idea and this drills down into specifics. I would like to see this come back again, but more the way we had discussed it at the workshop, kind of as a guideline rather than as specifics. So.
All right. That's what I thought. Okay. Chief Stunek, you with us?
I'm still here.
All right. Anything you'd like to add?
I'm just gonna concur with the no votes.
Okay.
And here's a couple reasons why, for what he said, but it's only been a week. I would like to see it come back tweaked, so we can review it and look at it again. Amen.
Thank you. Okay.
Chair, I got a question. Given this discussion,
Yes.
I'd be willing to withdraw the motion with that recommendation that we send this back and have it come back, tweaked.
You can withdraw your motion if you want to.
I think I'm going to do that. So I'll withdraw the motion because given this discussion and the concerns of the language.
Seconder.
That was me.
And then have that come
Gone.
back.
Okay, the motion and the seconder.
Make it fail.
Well, I know what you're thinking, but let's not do that. I'll accept a withdrawal. Tad, I think planning and zoning was looking for, what I understood was a conceptual agreement on changing to an annotated outline zoning. And I get that they were looking for council approval before they go spend the next 6 months trying to get this, right?
Yeah. They're looking for, are we headed in the right direction? And we got.
Yeah, that's what I understood. You want to try and throw something together for planning and zoning right now in a motion that we'll voice vote on the procedure, on the process?
So, yeah, we'd move to approve the concepts generally outlined in the workshop and
Annotated outline zoning code.
describing the annotated outline.
Okay, so we have a motion.
And just,
Hang on. Let's just make a simple motion giving planning and zoning thumbs up or thumbs down to the direction they've presented.
move to,
Not a 45-page motion.
move to give planning and zoning direction to move forward with the annotated outline, general direction.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stengline. Gabe Johnson.
I just like clarification on what that means, and let's go back to the resolution that we're not going to vote on. But if you look to this, the last whereas, it says the annotated outline recommends the transition of the adopted zoning code to a hybrid character-based zoning code to better align with the 2035 comprehensive plan. That's kind of what I thought we were going to be voting on tonight.
I like that, right?
So if that's kind of the intention of the motion you just made, that, yes, that annotated outline looks good, we should transition to a hybrid character-based, yes, nothing in there is being adopted. If that's the intent of this motion, I support it.
Yes.
Do you like that wordage? Can you rephrase your motion with that? Can you read it? Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I'll pull it up here. Well, I can see it right here. So, make a motion for planning and zoning to make a recommendation approving the annotated outline that it recommends the transition of the adopted zoning code to a hybrid character-based zoning code to better align with the 2035 comprehensive plan.
Second.
We actually have a seconder.
Oh,
Tiffany Stengline.
sorry.
Shoot. We did not have a new motion. Tad Erickson was just clarifying. You can third it.
Nope, I might not even vote yes.
Have we discussed it enough? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. That's got all kinds of stuff. All right. Next up is item D, 9D, consideration for interim ordinance instituting a moratorium on amendments to the zoning code. And it, this seems like it was asked for while the 6-month period goes on to clarify all the characteristics in the zoning. It seemed to make sense. Mr. Chansky, is there anything you wish to add?
The goal of the moratorium actually was to have the zoning ordinance completed by the end of January 2022. That has been ultimately the goal. So our goal was hopefully to have this adopted. Obviously, we got some different direction from council tonight. Start language, and that's why we wanted to put the moratorium in place. Now, we still would recommend putting the moratorium, starting the process of putting the moratorium in place as we inch closer to now being able to get to that language and start drafting language. So even in the light of the action that the council took on this previous direction, we still, staff would still recommend we move forward towards the process of putting a moratorium in place on amending the zoning code. Requesting text amendments to the zoning code, I should say.
Any questions of Mr. Chansky? Tiffany?
I believe at the workshop, you had mentioned a legal timeline for how long we can keep a moratorium in place. Is there any concern that because we have slowed things down perhaps a little bit, that we're going to need more time, and so we should delay this?
We can always, within state statute, and Attorney Lango can also expound on this, the city actually does have the ability to extend the moratorium. If we get to January and we're not done, the city council does have, for a specific amount of time, is allowed to extend the moratorium.
Okay,
So it can
so
be.
I'm not worried about that.
Any further discussion? Chairman O'Day.
What's a disadvantage to starting a moratorium too early? Not that I can think of one, but something to consider. Is there, if we have no reason to do a moratorium until they come back, say in a month, with some changes on the annotated outline. And then we start the moratorium then. Wouldn't that be just the same as doing it now, except for a month later?
Mr. Chansky?
So first, just a couple things to that, Councilmember O'Day. One, because this is an interim ordinance, it does have to go through the ordinance adoption process. So tonight would be the first reading. You set a public hearing and a second reading for August 2nd. So it'd have to go through that process. Also, again, the moratorium doesn't preclude the city council and the planning commission from considering amendments to the code between now and the time the new code is adopted. It just essentially gives us more wiggle room. It pretty much says the 60-day rule no longer applies, and we can work with an applicant hand in hand with the zoning code update. So we're not updating our current code while we're trying to write a new code.
Chairman Johnson?
So what you're saying, or what Community Development Director is saying, and what I'm hearing, Mr. Chair, is the exact same stuff that he said at the workshop a week ago that we all conceptually agreed to and thought was a good idea. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm hearing the same thing too. Any further discussion, question? You have a motion, Chairman Johnson. This would be on proposed ordinance 1519.
And I'd move to hold the first reading of proposed ordinance 1519, an interim ordinance placing a temporary moratorium on applications to amend the zoning ordinance, including the official zoning map and the city, and directing that studies of official controls related thereto be conducted and dispense with the actual reading of the ordinance. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes unanimously. Number 2, we're looking for a motion to schedule a public hearing for proposed ordinance 1519 during the council meeting on August 2nd.
So
Motion
moved,
by
Johnson.
Johnson, second by Erickson. Any further discussion on scheduling the public hearing? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We are moving on to item 10. This is a public forum, time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. Usually we like to keep it to 3 minutes, and if you're a WebEx caller, hit *3, and I don't see that we have any WebEx callers, so we'll get rid of that. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on something that isn't on tonight's agenda? Anybody at all? Going once, going twice. Public forum is closed at 8:28. Next up is staff reports. We'll start over on this far end with Attorney Langell. Anything?
Nothing from me.
Mr. Chansky, Community Development.
Just a few things, Mr. President. The Planning Commission does have a meeting this Wednesday, July 21st at 6 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. A little quick update on the work of the Parking Commission. They are putting together, they discussed, and staff will be putting together a parking plan. This plan is kind of a short-term as well as long-term recommendations, including everything from fees to looking at the public parking that we have downtown, how that should be managed. I will note that this plan, no discussion when they were discussing their plan, did not include any recommendations of eliminating the BN lot at this time. But they'll be considering that, adopting that plan during their meeting in August, and I assume it'll probably be coming before the city council after that. And then finally, the EDA is going to be beginning their 2022 budget process starting in August.
Thank you, Mr. Chansky. City Engineer Sandy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I had a pre-meeting with MnDOT and our consultant team that they've hired for the joint presentation on August 2nd. So this presentation will be kind of the first public outreach that we perform as a consultant team, MnDOT, city, county. We have invited representatives. I think Representative Heinzman has actually RSVP'd. He will be coming to that. And it'll be kind of the first look at what we've been working on for, well, COVID kind of put a little bit of a stop on it, but the last year and a half to 2 years. So really looking forward to that workshop and getting some feedback on a very, very important project to the city of Brainerd. The park board has started their budget process, which they got the first look of what myself and the chair, Kevin Yeager, put together in the past 6 months. I will say that it's been very rewarding for me, so I appreciate the confidence in my department and the maintenance guys and our recreation staff to continue on with this public works structure. I think it's been good for all of us, and I think we have a lot of good places we're going. So I just want to thank you all for that. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Finance Director Hillman, nothing to add. Your turn will come. IT Director Strong, anything to add? How about Eric Charpentier, HRA Director?
Nothing at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Police Director, Police Chief, Police
Director.
All right.
Wow.
And for that, you get a pay raise.
Or pay cut, we're not sure.
Yes, Joe. Anything to add? Thank you very much. And City Administrator Bergman.
Just a couple of quick things. We did have a Charter Commission meeting last week, and the Charter Commission discussed primarily 3 topics. That was a discussion on the term mill levy, a discussion on the contributions to the outside organizations, and then a discussion on Chapter 7 of the Park and Recreation Board. Staff will be bringing back a red line version of the charter to the next Charter Commission meeting for their review prior to coming to the City Council. Also, next meeting, you will have resolutions on your agenda to consider the ad hoc committees. We did meet with all of those ad hoc committees to let them know that this is the process and the procedure that the City Council adopted, so you will have those on your August 2nd meeting. And LELS union negotiations, we are starting with them on August 4th. We tried to schedule something with them and Teamsters for July, but we got on a calendar with them in August. So you will have a closed session on August 2nd to start talking about those union negotiations. And then I am finally able to attend my first in-person conference, which I'm really looking forward to. It's the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities summer conference that will be held next Thursday and Friday in Alexandria. So I'm looking forward to connecting with other city administrators across the state. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Mayor Bedell.
Oh my gosh, I've been on vacation, so I have a wonderful report on sun and chlorine levels within the pool. I just want to say that for those of you that have been trying to get a hold of me, I stood true to my word that I was not answering phone calls or emails. So there are going to be some upset people with me, and I'm okay with that. For one time in my life, I took a break. So
better check, because there's a pink slip on one of those.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. I'll hide it right here in my pocket. Other than that, I'm looking forward to getting back into the swing of things with all the commissions and groups. But I want to thank everyone that was able to take care of things in my absence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start on this end. Tiffany Stengline, anything to add?
Yes, so the Sesquicentennial Group has had a couple of meetings, actually, since our last city council meeting. We approved 2 items tonight, so that feels like we're really moving forward with things now. We've got over a dozen community partners that I want to thank, but I'm not going to name in case I forget someone.
Thank you. Chief Stunek, anything to add?
I don't have anything myself, but just don't forget the fire chief in case he happens to be lurking on the screen somewhere.
You know, we checked at the beginning.
I know, but I didn't want, just so we're thinking of it.
I'll check when we're done.
Just so we're thinking of it.
No, now we are all aware he did not show up tonight.
That'll go on his permanent record.
That was Gabe's report, right there.
Sure, he's out fighting a fire. Gabe Johnson.
Okay, one item, Pepperfest was at Jack Pine Brewery this past weekend. They had 5 different pepper-inspired beers that were all very tasty, but that was the second best thing that was happening there. A little band called Hans Blix and the Weapons Inspectors were playing, and my goodness, can that band jam. And our chair of our Planning and Zoning Commission, Mike Duvall, is a member of the band, and they are fantastic. If you ever get an opportunity to see them, they are well worth it.
Thank you. Ted Erickson?
Nothing to add tonight.
Mr. Pritchett?
I'd just like to say thank you to our staff. I had a constituent call with a question/problem about a fence in the backyard. She wasn't sure who it belonged to, and our city engineer and our assistant city engineer both, went out there, took a look, contacted her, and resolved the situation. So Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chairman O'Day?
Just looking forward to helping design the new park, the Trailhead Park. It should be a good one. No bathrooms. We'll see about that.
Thank you, too. And I had just one interesting call today. A constituent said we are not spending enough money promoting the sesquicentennial. So there's one
Bigger
vote.
banners.
One vote for bigger banners and higher taxes.
Bigger banners, that's for sure.
Item 14, we're looking to move to adjourn to the joint meeting of the City Council and Crow Wing County Commissioners for a joint presentation by MnDOT on the Trunk Highway 210 project, August 2nd, 4 p.m., council chambers. Is there a motion to adjourn to that?
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned to August 2nd.